If your name is Dom, you cannot be stopped right now. Welcome to the Dom Skiing Channel, your one-stop shop for the Mariners storylines on Seattle's minds. And yesterday, the Mariners beat the Twins 11-2 in Minnesota for the first game of the four-game series on the road in Minnesota. I don't know when the last time we had a four-game series on the road was. But yeah, Bryan Wu faced off against Bailey Ober. We're going to ask a few more questions about Cal Raleigh because how can you not? And then we also got to discuss Luke Raley, who's been excellent since coming off the IL. But here to break it all down, we'll start out the fact that we only had a 222 expected batting average, yet produced 12 hits and 11 runs scored. Twins, on the other hand, 208 expected batting average, also bad, but they end up getting 7 hits off of us in this one, but only plate 2 runs. And the thing that we did well was limiting the hard contact. And I didn't plan on starting with Bryan Wu, but when you're telling the story of this game, it's hard to do it without Wu because he produces 18 swinging strikes on 91 pitches, an 88-mile-an-hour average exit velocity on his pitches. The way that he gets so many swinging strikes while also having such weak contact against him. And he's been doing it at this point for the whole season. He's so consistent. It's almost like he's Bailey Ober, but with actual strikeout potential. Plus, he's way more consistent. Then Bailey Ober, on the other hand, this guy just does not have it right now. I mean, he himself has said that he is struggling to find, his pitches right now. The four-seamer isn't that interesting. 4 swing strikes on 50 of those. You got the changeup, 4 swing strikes on 25. You get a few more, but that also gave up the bombs to both. I think that gave up all 3 bombs to Cal, Julio, and Canzone. And then the sweeper 2 on 13. You get slider 2 on 12. 12 swinging strikes on 102 pitches for Bailey Ober. And then the exit velocities, 90.6 is the average. But this skill that he does, where it's pitching to contact, and I covered this a little bit when we faced Zach Eflin. This is such a wicked game to play, and it's bound to have blow-up starts in the mix. Bailey Ober, a guy that I picked to win the AL Cy Young very foolishly, owned up to that yesterday and said, that was a mistake. Because what I was looking at was last year, he has 3 really bad starts, and then he has a whole, 31 great starts or whatever it was. So if he can just figure out what went wrong in those blow-up games and, then maybe the floor just gets raised that much more for Bailey Ober, a guy who is really, when you say 31 and a 34 of the starts were great, you think, well, that's got to be, that's got to be the model of consistency. But Bailey Ober himself is the antithesis of dependability. Because just when you depend on him the most, as I have in fantasy baseball for a few years now, he'll blow up on you. He blew up on me late in the season last year. He blew up on me, last week. And in June, I've been starting him on my fantasy team. I luckily benched him 10 minutes before the game yesterday because I knew I would have no fun watching one of my least favorite pitchers to watch pitch against the Mariners, and B, back to A, if I had started him in fantasy, it would have been a nightmare watching the Mariners game and knowing that everything good we do goes against my fantasy team. But then also, he's just been awful recently, and what Nick Pollock said about him yesterday when he released his most recent edition of the list. You had him saying he ranked him 78th, the 78th, out of the 150 starting pitchers in baseball. He said Ober has admitted that he's pitching through injury. His four-seamer command is still off. The breaker's getting laced, and the changeup isn't the stud pitch it used to be. It's rough. So yeah, he goes to the changeup for the whiffs in this one, but also gets crushed. And yeah, with Bailey Ober, he's a guy who I don't know exactly what it would take to fix it, or if something prompted him to lose control, but it's so volatile that you just have to. In fantasy, you can bench him when he's doing bad, you can start him when he's doing good, But for the Twins, this is just a terrible scenario to be in with Bailey Ober. He's pitching terrible when the season's really heating up, as we are basically at the halfway point now. This was game number 78. So on Thursday will be game 81. That will be the halfway point. Bailey Ober is absolutely broken right now. All of the pitches are broken. The changeup, which is supposed to be the big knockout weapon, the big trick up his sleeve, the big iron curtain defense, it's not working. And then you've got, his breakers are just getting destroyed too. Julio hits a homer off of a low breaking ball on him. Obviously saw it pretty well, and put a great swing on it. But then, you throw Cal one up in the zone, you're asking for it. And then Canzone's was pretty middle as well. Both of those were, I know, were changeups. Julio's, I'd have to look at. And then you look at the box score, and you look at our lineup. We did have 8 of our 9 hitters strike out. The one who didn't, Dominic Canzone. And this guy cannot be stopped right now. He goes 2 for 4 with a homer, 2 runs scored, and the RBI. He's now batting .308 with 1,024 OPS. 4 hard hits in this one. So every single time he comes up to the plate, he hits the ball hard. And this is the type of guy, I think we don't talk about this enough, but shouts out to the Mariners broadcast. I think it was the national broadcast, the Fox broadcast, that mentioned this yesterday. He barrels up the ball more than anybody when he gets going. It almost reminds me of like a Brendan Donovan, where it's like that barrel rate goes up, and now he looks like he's one of the best hitters in baseball. If you remember the way that he looked when he was up earlier in the year in April, he was watching pitches go by. He just could not time everything up and get in rhythm. But now, he's looking awesome. None of his stats qualify. He doesn't have that many plate appearances yet, only 42. But the stats for Dom Canzone, the early returns since getting called back up, are phenomenal. So right now you got Dom Canzone is really starting to lock down that right field spot just with the bat. And then Luke Raley hitting another homer. He is now batting .247 with a 782 OPS. He goes 1 for 2. He does strike out, but gets 3 RBIs and scores a run in this one. With Luke Raley and Donovan Solano and the way that each of them are hitting right now, this first base platoon could really take off. And I remember when you have a really good first base platoon, an example that I want to use is Lamont Wade and Darren Ruff on the Giants when they contended with the Dodgers. I think they won 110 games. The Dodgers won like 111. I can't even remember. They might have won the division that year, right over the Dodgers. But yeah, they had Darren Ruff and Lamont Wade as that first base platoon. Both were just absolutely mashing. They were in a ballpark that allowed them to really just smack it off the wall. I think that was also the year that the ball was juiced for the power rallies the most. And so big power rallies in San Francisco, and it worked out pretty well for those guys. But I think, this Raley and Solano platoon can really be what we were hoping for originally. As ironic as it is that we brought in Rowdy, he, is really taking most of the at-bats at that position this season. You look at now, and you've got 2 really, really extremely hot hitters from each side of the plate. Neither of them are awesome defensively at first base, but they both make some good plays. And both of them have been making good plays on defense as of late. Now it's like, I would still trade for a first baseman. But that's my question is, would you guys rather roll with a red-hot Donovan Solano and a red-hot Luke Raley going into July? It'll be interesting to see over the next month, if these guys cool off, that's when we'll probably be looking at making a trade for a first baseman. But it also could help us in the market because you say, hey, we have 2 excellent sides of this platoon, and we don't even need to break it up. We don't need to go get an everyday first baseman. At least we don't need to overpay to do so the way that we would have earlier because we were more desperate. When we were starting Rowdy Tellez, Donovan Solano looked like an afterthought in this lineup, and then Luke Raley was hurt, and you didn't know what you were going to get out of him this year, let alone this month. And so the other spots that you look at that we could really upgrade, Second base and third base, you got Cole Young, Ben Williamson. Those are the young guys. You want to keep getting them reps. Neither is doing terrible, but neither is so good that you can't take him out of the lineup. Although I would have a bad feeling if we traded for, because there's a really strict line of, like, you got to be elite to replace a young guy on a team-friendly deal who's hitting 254 and being extremely scrappy. Obviously these guys are not meant to have the big OPSs. And you look at the rest of the lineup, everybody's now in the 700s in OPS, except for Cal, who's at 1,048, and Canzone, who's still at 1,024. So that's definitely, our lineup is looking good. The first base platoon is absolutely rocking. And I want to know from you guys, would you still trade for a first baseman? The Ryan O'Hearn questions, the Ryan O'Hearn debate seems to be long gone at this point. It feels like, he was the hot one. Now Raley's the hot one from the left side. So why replace him really with Ryan O'Hearn? That's about as eye for an eye as you can get. And then, then you look at the other positions that we could upgrade, and it's young guys. I think more than anything, the front office and the ownership might be happy right now because they're not going to have to go spend big at the trade deadline like they thought they might. You don't have a massive gaping hole in the lineup the same way now. Although, if Cole Young goes on a cold streak, Ben Williamson goes on a cold streak, this fan base, could be against them in 10 days or less. A bad week, where they get 1 or 2 hits, I'm sure you'll have people clamoring in the fan base for a move. But in terms of what's actually going on inside the building, it's hard to see why you would, again, replace young players who you developed on team-friendly deals, who really fit the philosophy, the organization, and even fit the lineup right now as currently constructed. It would have to be a Rafael Devers if you were going to do something like that. Then, just to read you guys the pitching lines, Bailey Ober just packed the box score with 7s. He goes 7 innings, allows 7 earned runs on 7 hits, he gets 7 strikeouts, doesn't walk anybody. So interesting. Clearly it's not the control. Clearly it's a lot more command, mental, and physical for Bailey Ober. Allows the 3 homers, 102 pitches. He's now up to a 4.9 ERA on the year, and he gets hit hard 8 times. This is one of the funniest things in this game to me. Bryan Wu also got hit hard 8 times, but he didn't give up. He gave up 2 homers as well. He just limited the base runners, But it's funny because you look at his line: 6 innings, 2 earned runs on 6 hits, so just 1 less hit allowed, 9 strikeouts to 1 walk, so 1 more walk than Ober. Then gives up the 2 homers, just 1 less than Ober, but he just doesn't give up the homers in the clutch spots the way that Ober does. And you got to feel for a guy who's going up against this lineup at this point, who's struggling because he threw us fastballs and changeups, and we saw him. That's definitely a little bit of a dream night for the Mariners in that regard in terms of the matchup. And then at this point, I kind of want to move on to today. Dom Canzone. Not really much more to talk about with him. I want to tell you guys that there's this big answer. Oh, Dom Canzone is now a starting caliber right fielder, but you don't do that in a week. You do that over a month at least, maybe really like a quarter season. So a month and a half. If you do it for a month and a half, I'll start to believe that's who you are as a player. Right now, Dom Canzone is red hot. Luke Raley's red hot. And Donovan Solano, even though he didn't play, is red hot. We should be excited to see him. Today, we already have a hit. We got Cal Raleigh. Big surprise, right? And the only thing I wanted to ask you guys after this, it's like, geez, this guy Cal Raleigh, pretty good at baseball, isn't he? It's just like, I don't know, but you guys tell me, is this guy good at baseball or what? I don't know. I've ran out of things to say at this point. Obviously, I'm putting Cal for AL MVP every time that he does something MVP worthy, which these days it's been every game. Anyway, I'm going to be back tomorrow. We're going to recap this game. So far, Chris Paddock has thrown us a lot of fastballs, so that bodes very well. So he's thrown us 7 fastballs and 2 sliders. Fastballs sitting at 94.9 average. mid 90s fastball for the Mariners these days is, you just call that our next meal. And I think we're going to end it with that. I'll be back tomorrow to recap Game 2 of this series. This is Game 79 on the season that we're going to be recapping. And Thursday is going to be the midway point. It's surprising to me to say that we've almost done 80 of these, but tomorrow that'll be the case. All right, I will see you guys tomorrow. Go M's.